Welcome to another episode of Trouble to Transformation. Today I have Graeme Ford. Graeme Ford is a therapist based in Canmore, Alberta, specializing in men's mental health. He is one of the founders of Man Aligned, an organization dedicated to creating safe spaces for men to explore their emotions, build brotherhood, and support each other's mental well-being. Man Aligned offers various programs and events, including online circles, mastermind programs, day immersions, and retreats. These initiatives help men connect deeply with themselves and others, fostering vulnerability, emotional intelligence, healthy masculinity, and connecting to their innate wisdom. Welcome to another episode of Man Aligned. Welcome to another episode of Trouble to Transformation. Today I have Graeme Ford. Graeme Ford is a therapist based in Canmore, Alberta, specializing in men's mental health. He is one of the founders of Man Aligned, an organization dedicated to creating safe spaces for men to explore their emotions, build brotherhood, and support each other's mental well-being. Man Aligned offers various programs and events, including online circles, mastermind programs, day immersions, and retreats. These initiatives help men connect deeply with themselves and others, fostering vulnerability, emotional intelligence, healthy masculinity, and connecting to their innate wisdom. Welcome, Graeme. Welcome to the platform. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here and to drop in with you and your listeners today and just chat. It's been a long time since we've been able to chat. So
yes. Well, it's funny because when I downloaded some of those pictures for the thumbnails, it was exactly at 52 weeks. That was when we first planned the first interview. So that's how long it took.
We need to clear our schedules more, Rhonda.
Yes, you know what? And you know how much I love your work. I've actually been a client. I've sat in your space and I couldn't speak more highly of the work that you do. So let's jump right in.
Hey, Rhonda, thank you so much for those kind words. And, yeah, it was an honor to work with you, and also like the work you do specifically to the demographic that I work with men in like prison systems is so fucking important. Like whenever I have deep reverence and deep bows for that kind of work and for the work you do. So thank you for doing that. So yeah, let's jump in.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Absolutely. So let's start right from the beginning. What inspired you to start Man Aligned and focus on men's work?
Oh, Rhonda, this is always the tearjerker. Does everybody have tissues to drag you pull over? No. What inspired me to start Man Aligned was about 5.5, 6 years ago. I was deep in it, in my own personal, just like, what do people call them? The dark night of the soul. I was a teacher. And I was deep in it with my ex-wife and my son and addiction, and I just didn't know where to go. My only outlet really essentially was rock climbing, and was also my dog. And I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I felt something was very, very wrong. And my ex-wife, bless her heart, said, "Hey, there's this Sacred Sons thing you should go check out." And I think in every podcast I've ever done, I always shout out Sacred Sons. So prayers up to Sacred Sons. If you're a man, please check them out. If you're a woman, check them out. If you're human, check them out. And I went down to Southern California, to the desert, and I had this experience. I don't even know what to call it. Men's work is what people told me it was. And I was hooked. I was like, what is this? The most impactful statement that was told to me that weekend was twofold. It was, you're not the only one, and you're not alone. And I remember being like, what? I'm a social guy. I've always had a lot of friends. Yeah, even to this day, it still like rocks my core a bit. So I came back up to Canada and did some leadership training with Sacred Sons, and started a master's in therapy. And I COVID happened. This thing COVID. So now we couldn't do any men's work up here because the bros who I knew who were doing men's work were all in the States. We weren't allowed into Canada. So I just created Man Aligned. I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but what I do know is this. If you bring dudes together to even just sit in a circle and just say this, how are you doing? Like, how are you actually doing?
Yeah.
Tired is not how you're doing. Busy is not how you're doing. Stressed is not how you're doing. Those are cumulative effects of how you're doing.
Yeah.
So, like, bringing that emotional awareness into a space, right? And what happened, Rhonda, which was like really crazy, is like I live in Canmore, Alberta, Treaty 7 territory, you know, almost Nakota, Lakota, Piikani peoples, and there's so many cool things to do here. Like, so many cool.
I can imagine. Outdoor paradise.
Outdoor paradise, right? But guess what happened? Bros started showing up to like light a candle and sit in a circle and just be like, hey man, this is what's really going on. I'm stressed about finance. I'm concerned about my daughter. Me and my beloved aren't doing well. Whatever. And it's like, whoa, you literally could be doing anything right now. You can go ice climb outside my house. Ride skidoos just outside the park. But people were coming for that. And then it became what my friend Calais would describe as a beautiful burden. It's a responsibility, right? Without men's work, I wouldn't be here. Straight fact. I didn't know, but once I felt it, I knew, holy shit. I have guys who come to our events who are like, everything's good, man. I just want to be here to hang out. It's beautiful. And I have guys who come to our events who are like, if it wasn't for this, I got 2 kids.
Yeah.
You know?
So you mentioned finances and some family relationship stuff, but can you share some more of the key challenges that men actually do face today that your programs address?
Oh, for sure. For sure. So first of all, I like to describe it like this. A lot of men who come to our programs are like, here, for people who can see, I'm going to do a little circle. You're making pasta, right? You're boiling water. Right before the water boils, we have those little tiny, what are they called? Like pre-bubbles? Bubbles? They're like really small, right? Before the water starts.
Kind of like the foam.
Exactly.
The foam part.
Yeah, pre-foam. So the majority of men who come to men's work and Men Aligned are pre-foam. Like they're right at the edge. What gets them to that point is a lot of things. Number one, I would say, is a lack of or an inability to slow down, to check in on what they're actually feeling.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably number one.
That flight energy.
Yeah. Number two is like an enormous amount of grief. I've processed, and I'll say this humbly, hundreds, if not thousands of people at this point. What a process might mean is just like been with someone while they've kind of remembered who they are. The level of grief in men is shocking, was shocking. Now it's like a normal thing. I'm like, yep, for sure. And this is twofold. One of these pieces is like, if we look back societally, who's ever told a man to slow down? Go slow.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions, Graeme, is like, what messages do you think that men receive from societal norms about what it actually means to be a man?
Oh, well, I mean, we've had all these stages, right? And they go back eons. They go back into mythology and archetypes, and we can speak about that in a minute.
Yes.
But like, what it means to be a man, if we're just sitting in kind of the 1900s, 2000s, what we're looking at is essentially, so you have the Industrial Revolution, right? This really fucked up the family dynamic, in my opinion.
It
So
did.
yeah, right. so men are
Yes.
off, they're going to factories, they're doing their things. Kids are like, oh, where's my dad? Like, he's gone 10 hours, 12 hours, yada yada. Totally get
Yeah.
it. So first kind of messaging from there is like, to be a good man, you go to work, right? You show up. Jan Martel has a beautiful quote where he says, a tie is essentially a noose turned upside down.
Ooh,
And
powerful.
then we get into World War One. Right?
Yes.
Go away. Right? There
Yeah.
is literally no time, in my belief, in history where people have left their homes because they want to. And
Yes.
for those listeners who are like, gee, you're kind of weird, I don't know about that, I invite you to go to Staten Island in the United States and look at these beautiful black and white photos they have of all these wonderful immigrants coming from Europe. What you will notice in those black and white photos when you look at their faces is not the words posted above saying, I'm looking for a new life. It's the sheer terror, havoc, and panic on their faces.
Yes.
No one leaves their home unless they absolutely have to. It's a reality.
Yes.
It's a cold, hard fact. The globalization has changed that to a degree, but that is still rooted within genetic DNA, in my belief.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
So we have Industrial Revolution, then we have World War One, then we have World War Two. Holy Toledo, what a time.
Yeah.
So folks are coming back from World War Two, and then what does it mean to be a man? It's what it's what Trevor Baum with Man Uncivilized Brilliant Man would describe as the Marlboro Man, period. That's
yes.
We're the Wranglers, you grew up northern BC. Let's go.
The rolled up white t-shirt.
Rolled up t-shirt. No, I'm gonna smoke when I don't need to smoke. Got my cowboy hat. But here's the thing, right? So a Marlboro Man is someone who doesn't express emotion but gets shit done. It doesn't matter what the shit is. I get it fucking done. So these are all societal kind of impressions, right? And then we go to the 1980s. There's a flash of kind of like, oh, there's this financial literacy piece. Is that a man? Is that not a man? I'm not entirely sure. We have ice hockey here in Canada. That's a big kind of piece of what it means to be a man. Ice hockey, when we break it down, it's one of the greatest sports in the world. But let's also think about this. It's literally the only professional sport where you can fight someone. Like where you're encouraged to fight someone.
I was going to say where it's encouraged.
In boxing, it's like my job is to go and fight someone. In ice hockey, it's like my job is actually to pass a puck or shoot a puck, but I'm encouraged to go and hurt someone and likely possibly hurt myself. So that's a whole other dichotomy of masculinity that exists, at least here in North America. But so if we go beyond this, like, what's the messaging left from that? Essentially what it is, in my opinion, distilled down, working with men from 15 to 17 all the way up to 85, 90, is this. Do it yourself. It's not a big deal. Carry the fuck on.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if I had to distill it, right? Don't fucking worry about it. Get her done. Carry on.
Yeah. And just push every emotion down as far as you can into that 90% of the iceberg.
Yep. How much booze can you drink? Yep. Right? Like how far can you burn yourself down here? Because the flip side to that, right? If we get into like mythology and the story of Inanna and Egypt and all these things, like the flip side to that is like, what are we actually telling people?
Yeah.
Here's something like, I'm a therapist, you're a therapist, right? Here's something that almost consistently, I'd say 98% of the time, brings men to tears. Anytime I ask it. And I don't ask it to bring them to tears. I'm just like, hey, it's an important question.
It happens.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, man. And I'll look at someone and I'll be like, what's really alive? What's really alive in you? Take a fucking minute.
Yeah.
It's not the busy, bro.
Yeah.
What I see and what, in my opinion, we need to stop is a level of grief that's unbearable.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction is an outcome. Physical violence is an outcome. Sexual abuse is an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, one of the most common outcomes, 1 out of every 7 minutes, right? We've been on this call, so it's been 2 so
Yes.
far, is
Yeah.
bros going and dying who don't need to die. Straight hardcore.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm a therapist. You're a therapist. We know people who have done this. I've showed up
Yeah.
in those spaces and places. It's not a fucking carpet cleaner, right? And that's the physical space. Let alone the
Yeah.
kids we get to see for years and years and years after that.
Mm-hmm.
Or the beloved we have to see. Or the mom.
Yes.
Or the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Slow the fuck down.
Mm-hmm.
Take a breath. I don't give 2 shits, man. I know it's your shift. Slow the fuck down. Take a deep breath in. Yeah. How are you feeling? So yeah, that's I like to bring lightness and brevity and occasionally like sadness and depth. So
Yeah, but the thing is though, Graeme, like even in the line of work that I'm doing with the men that I work with, you know, like you said, a lot of them have experienced major losses and they're difficult deaths. Like you said,
oh, yeah.
a lot of their parents have either overdosed,
Mm-hmm.
are in the incarcerated, sorry,
Yeah.
and or have committed suicide.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, and they carry that pain, you know, with them now. And this is what we need to work on, right?
Totally. And you know, I love that reflection because it's like, you know, the issues are in the tissues, right? That's like a cool
Mm-hmm.
hippity dippity thing people say
Yeah.
nowadays. What do we do when people are born into that? What do we do when we go far enough back in our lines and we recognize
Yes.
that, right? I know you
Mm-hmm.
well enough to know you have some Celtic heritage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Celtic heritage over here, Ukrainian heritage.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that many generations that go back to find atrocities.
Oh, 100%. And you know, it's interesting, Graham, because our sessions together,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to heal the masculine wound with my father due to the geneogram.
Yeah.
Right. When I looked at my
Yeah.
grandfather and then my dad's experience, and I'm like, well, the
Makes
behavior
sense.
makes sense.
Totally.
It makes sense.
Totally. Right?
You know, like my grandfather was in the World War I by the time he was 14 years old. And so, and they escaped the Stalin regime when they were intentionally starving Ukraine.
Yeah.
So, like you said, they came from atrocities. And then, of course, generational trauma is real.
Yeah. And it's like, so how do we support people not only to recognize this in themselves, but to kind of like shake those issues in the
Yeah.
tissues, right? And
Yes.
and I think for men, it's been, I think for women, it's been incredibly difficult. I think for all humans, it's been very, very difficult. I think for men, based on kind of the events we were speaking of earlier, it's actually compounding.
Mm-hmm.
Provide, don't take a break, keep going. Provide, don't take a break, keep going. Provide, don't take a break, keep going. And what that comes out at is like, oh, well, I'm emotionally illiterate, let alone the fact that I'm carrying all of this.
Yeah.
All of this. You know, one of something I've noticed with a lot of my female friends is that since I started doing this work, they're a lot more aware of like astrology, what's happening in the world, what's going on with nature. And I always used to think, oh, as a 25-year-old guy, I'd be like, oh, they got more free time. They got more free time. It's what it is. There is an element to that. But the truth of it is that I don't have that time. Society actually doesn't give me that time. Even if I create it, I'm still told if you take a day off, you go and you do something. Right? And it's like, if we think about just the human body, what do we need to live? Like base level, what do we need to live?
Yes.
Breath in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Breath out.
Yeah. Food, water, shelter, right?
Exactly. But like,
Yeah.
Even if we don't have water, shelter, if we're in the middle of the desert, it's rough go, Rhonda missed the exit. Where are we going? In order to keep our bodies alive, we need to breathe in and we need to breathe out. In what fucking universe does it not make sense that applies to all aspects of our life?
Yes.
Take a breath in, take a breath out.
Yeah.
People sometimes say this to me. They say, oh, well, you do the men's work because, there's so much toxic masculinity. And I go, masculinity isn't toxic. It's a lack of it that's toxic. It's
agreed.
Let's breathe in and let's breathe out. Shit gets fucked up if you only breathe out and if you only breathe in, right? I could literally, for your viewers on YouTube, I could just breathe in for the next 2 minutes and you all could watch me pass out, right? And then you'd be calling me. I hope.
Yes.
But right? It's like, so how do we balance it, right? And we come with all these stories. So
yeah, no, and I do a lot of breath work in my sessions as well. And I teach a lot about the nervous system, right? The most primitive, complex thing in our body. Yeah. And yet nobody has ever been taught about the nervous system, which again, now the breath work comes in again, right? Yeah. Yeah. Now, one thing, you kind of touched on it just there for a second. What are some of the common misconceptions about men's work that you've encountered, and how do you address them? And the reason why I say that, Graeme, is because I want to kind of refer to that guy, Mark. Well, a video that I watched.
Our friend.
Yeah, he said, it was a great video. And the thing is, I'm coming across some of these misconceptions. So I want to hear your experience with some of this too, where some guys think it's like too woo-woo. Yeah. So they're like, oh, that's too soft. Yeah. And then you got the boxing gloves now are thrown in the middle and everybody's like, oh my God, I've never been violent. And they're paired up with a violent offender.
Totally. Yeah.
So they're like, that's too hard. What do we do?
Totally. I think, first of all, that guy, Markwell, prayers up, love Markwell. Yeah, he's a great guy. Most common misconception I hear with men's work is like, I'm not that broken. I don't need that kind of help. It's not that bad for me, right? Like my childhood was fine. I had 3 meals a day. I was never beaten up. Yeah, for sure. That's not.
I get that sometimes.
That is what
comparison
for, right? And like, yes, if you've had those ACEs experience, right? Like those adverse childhood experiences. Yeah, come and see me or Rhonda. Like we're therapists. We literally deal with that. Men's work welcomes that, but it's not actually what it's for. Okay. Other misconceptions are things like, oh, well, I don't cry. I'm not emotional. That's too physical. Like I just wouldn't get along with those guys. Let me be really, really clear for all the listeners right now. I have guys who come to our events who have renamed themselves after things in the astrology.
Oh, wow.
Who love crystals and feathers. I have guys you would never want to face playing ice hockey. Not a chance. Not a chance. I got farmers. I got oil and gas workers. I got men who are trying to do intuitive things to learn more about themselves so they can start their own healing center. It's the whole gamut. Right. And guess what? There's no comparison. It's kind of like trauma. There's no capital T trauma and small t trauma.
Yes.
It just happens. What all these men come for is the same thing. And that's connection and awareness. They're not the only one. They're not the only one. Yeah. Misconceptions. I mean, if we go on Instagram, we can find them all over the place, right? Oh, I gotta have a neck tattoo. I gotta do this thing. I can only use deodorant that is made with newts and cheese that's been fermented. It's not true. It's not true. Like you show up because you're a man, you identify as a
Yep.
man, and you just want to be acknowledged, to be like, hey,
Yeah.
am I the only one that's going through this?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I will confess
Hmm?
that even once upon a time that I had a bit of a bias
100%.
because I work with violent offenders.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
80%
Mhm.
of my clientele are violent offenders. So I'm like, oh, there's no way that they would ever fit into a program like that.
Yep.
Especially when the boxing gloves come out. Oh my God, it would be
Yep.
chaos. You know what I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean? So how do you incorporate the elements of brotherhood and connection in these programs to bring those guys together?
Oh, yeah. No, I love this. I want to speak to the boxing gloves in a second, but I'll try to answer this first.
Yeah.
Number one is really clear, crystal clear agreements, right? And in my
Mm.
opinion, both as an individual, as a therapist, as a men's work facilitator, all this stuff,
Mhm.
that's vital, right? So it's like, hey, what are we
Yep.
stepping into? This is a confidential space, it's an honest space, it's an accepting space,
Mhm.
whatever your agreements are, doesn't really matter.
Yep.
But so everyone can be in line with that. Number
Yeah.
two, boxing gloves. I literally
Mm.
did a podcast about this the other day. Um, I don't like boxing. I do it. I do it as like a practice,
Yep.
but I don't like it. I'm not like wake up on Tuesday like, oh, today's boxing day. I'm like, fuck. I'd rather literally do front squats. For any of your listeners who know front squats, they'll know that's the worst thing you can compare it to. Here's why boxing is so important. Getting smacked or giving a smack in a loving way is one of the fastest ways to reach these emotional edges that we
Mhm.
deny. Another way to
Mm.
do it is through group therapy or individual therapy, but it's
Mhm.
very, very fast when you get smacked. And I don't mean get smacked hard, okay, to be very clear. Like when we're boxing,
Yeah.
we're making agreements. If me and you want to box and you say, hey, I want to go to three, I'm like, give me your three on my shoulder. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
here's my three. How does that feel? Okay, let's dance.
Yes.
As we said earlier, the issues are in the tissues.
Mm.
That's how we get
Yes.
through it. I literally boxed a man, what is it now, December, in August, who'd been incarcerated in the United States for a long time.
Okay.
He had a tattoo from top to bottom. Really
Mhm.
loving man. I was about 175 pounds then, 6'2". He was about 5'8", 5'9", no less than 230. And
Mhm.
he said to me, I want to box you because I feel safe with you. And I remember being like, oh, dang. And
Yeah.
I said, how hard do you want to go? He said, I want to go 10. I said, okay, give me your 10. He almost broke my shoulder with his 10.
Mm.
And I went back to him
Mhm.
and I said, how about 6? He said, give me your 6. And I gave him a 6, as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't really feel it. I said, okay. He said, how about 7? And he gave me a 7, and I shuddered. My shoulder was wounded, but I shuddered. And
Mhm.
I gave him a 7. He said, I can agree to that. I said, okay.
Oh.
And I boxed with this man for 2 minutes, nonstop, just dancing. I didn't realize, I think he'd been smoking Marlboro Reds most of his life. But after about the first 40 seconds of me praying for my life and basically covering, um, I got some in, and he got some in.
Mhm.
Here's what happens at the end of boxing. I was a little sore. He was a little sore. So much gratitude.
Mm.
So much fucking gratitude. Those
Yeah.
men who were sitting there, who were like, dude, I haven't had human connection. We're not trying to kill each other. If we were to kill each other, it would be a different game. Here's the
Right.
square. Kill each other. You have 2
Yeah.
minutes. It's not that. Thank you for teaching me about myself. Thank you for reminding me I can stand. The guy had
Yeah.
55 pounds on me, Rhonda.
Yeah.
You don't think I saw some of those hooks coming? Oh, I did.
Mm.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going, where's my arm at? You know, I got it up to
Right.
here right
Yeah.
before it came through. You don't think I didn't go, oh, oh.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
jump.
I really like the piece though where you guys gauged it and just did like the 6, the 7, the 10.
It's the
Uh,
agreements, Rhonda. It's the agreement.
Yes, that's brilliant. I love that because my concern with some of the violent offenders is that their neuroception is just like that broken alarm system, right? So it's a perceived threat now, but all of the physiological changes are still making it quite real,
Yeah.
and then it dysregulates. Have you ever had a client dysregulate?
Oh, often, right? It's the like introspection.
Mhm,
It's like,
mhm.
okay, like, am I feeling what's going on in my body? Right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you over a weekend event where I haven't had to stop, pause. Are we in agreement? Right? And this
Ah.
is the important part, right?
Mhm,
Don't think for a second I couldn't have had that giant tattooed lovely brother come at me and done
mhm,
this. Put my left arm up
mhm.
and give him a sucker punch.
Right.
Played hockey. I
Mm.
I can do that.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. Can I stay
Mhm.
in my boundary and can he stay in his? That's where the winning is.
Yes.
That's where the fucking winning is. It's not about knocking each other down,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, because if we think about it, boxing essentially, or wrestling, or whatever physical activity people want to do, is essentially a microcosm of life,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
You ever been to a
Yes.
Costco parking lot on Saturday before Christmas?
Oh, I refuse. I won't go there.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Self-awareness, but it's
Yeah.
like, here's a piece. Like, how can I control myself? And
Mhm.
it's not just about control, because I think when we were
Mhm.
talking about like masculine kind of like, here's some mismessaging.
Mhm.
There was a time, mid 1990s, early 1990s to about mid 2000s, where you may have started to see a lot of people wear very tight jeans and
Mhm.
really talk about their emotions. Rhonda, how am I
Mm.
doing today? Let me tell you how I'm doing.
Yeah.
My dog hiccuped in a way that I didn't know. It's not about that. These are
Mhm.
pendulums. Okay. Marlboro
Yes.
Man,
Yep.
super over emotive, right? It's like, how do we
Yep.
keep them in ourselves? And one of the fastest
Mm.
ways into that is through our body,
Yeah.
right? You don't think that
Yeah.
guy Markwell? I don't actually, I should say this on camera. I don't think I've ever actually boxed Markwell. I probably wouldn't because he's a very good boxer. But I can say this 100%. If I boxed Markwell, he would run a train on me. I might get a shot or two, but what I can say is this: I have the ability and the awareness that when he hits me with the solid hook and the solid jab and
Mm.
some combo, and he's been learning, um, I will come back with fire at our agreement, but I won't come back beyond our agreement
Mhm.
because I know what he's there to do is not to hurt me. Iron sharpens
Mhm.
iron, right? These
Yeah.
bros who are locked up, let them sharpen each other. They're not
Yeah.
dangerous. You know what's really like Trevor Baum? well, quote
Mhm.
again, brilliant guy. It's like, be a danger, but don't be dangerous.
Mm.
I go to the gym, I work out, I can
Yeah.
hurt things, but I'm not dangerous. I'm not
Mhm.
dangerous. But if it's me and Rhonda are walking down the street and a bear is like, I'm gonna eat the blonde lady, I'm like, all right, like I don't want to do this, bear, but like you're gonna tap out.
Well, you're a bow hunter,
Well,
so I mean,
you know,
right?
presumably I'm not walking down the street with that, but I'm just saying, like, it's
Mhm.
this is how men can sharpen each other, right? It's like,
Mhm.
be a fucking danger, like be someone
Yeah.
who can do things, whether it's build a house, whether it's
Yes.
have an interaction that's loving from the heart, whether it's drive a car down an icy road. I don't
Mhm.
care, but don't be fucking dangerous. That's different.
Right.
When we're dangerous, we're misaligned. So it's like,
Yes.
I'm lucky enough to have a lot of brothers in my life.
Mm-hmm.
A great deal of them live in Edmonton, ironically, who are arguably some of the most like danger filled people I know.
Mm-hmm.
But they ain't dangerous. They ain't dangerous at all.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if I was in it and I was like, well, I'm moving to Alaska and I'm going to go build a cabin with a saw,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it would be one call. And they'd all be like, yeah, bro, we got you. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's what, in a lot of ways, healthy masculinity can look like.
Yeah. But I mean, can they bow hunt an elk,
Yeah.
process the animal in grizzly country and paddle it out in a canoe?
Hey, hey,
I know a few things about you, Graeme.
hey, there's I hope my brother Ryan Fisher listens to this because he was there with us.
I tell some of the boys in the facility about that, right? And you should see their eyeballs, right? And I'm like, that's dangerous.
Was not our intent.
But that's dangerous, right? But I totally get that because actually Jordan Peterson says something about that too, about carry a sword, but keep it in your sheath.
Exactly.
You know?
Right. And like
Yeah.
what I think in a lot of ways, what Pearson's speaking to there is like intention and impact. Right.
Yes.
Are
Yeah.
like when we had that magical experience, anyone curious, please reach out to Man Aligned. I will regale you with details. But our intention was to go out on the last day of bow hunting season at 3:00 in the afternoon, snow on the ground, November here, right? We'd been out bow hunting 80 times before. Nothing. A few sights, and then I'd step on a branch, blah, blah, blah. Our intention was to take a canoe off across the Bow River, go explore a new zone, have a good time with my friend. The impact was 725 pounds later, a massive elk with an arrow in her heart, square.
Yeah.
So I was like, what do we do now? Right. And I think in a lot of ways, that's a metaphor for just for men and for humans.
Yeah.
What's our intention? And then what do we do with the impact? When the arrow goes straight into the heart, what do we do with the impact? It might be apologies. It might be changing behaviors. It might be all sorts of stuff. And you'll know this as well as a therapist. There's literally I can't remember what it is, like 0.001% of the global population who would be designated as psychopathic or sociopath. Okay?
Yes, I've met a few of them.
Yeah, totally. Lucky you. Right? But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The overwhelming majority are good people just trying to do the best that they can. And that doesn't mean their impact has always been good.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do we support each other to see that? Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's, oh, hey, you're late for dinner. Sorry, my intention was to do this. My impact is now you have a hungry stomach and you're angry.
Yes.
But let's come together, right? And like one thing, and me and you have worked on this together. One thing that I talk about in men's work is like when people come with conflict, like, oh, my ex-wife, oh, my mother-in-law, my whoever, blah, blah, blah. First question before we do anything is like, do you want to be closer to this person or do you want to be farther away?
That's a good one.
So what do you want? Right? Because neither are right, just to be clear. There's no right here. But there's different paths. There's different paths. If I've upset you and I'm like, I want to be closer to Rhonda, then I have a different path than I've upset you and I don't want to be closer to Rhonda. Cool. Right. No problem. There's literally no judgment there. But when we come back to like earlier in the conversation, like what do men need to do? It's like slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
You want to be closer or you want to be farther away? I don't want to be closer to the guy who cut me off in traffic yesterday. Straight up.
Yeah. For sure. And, and just going back to, the sociopaths and psychopaths, and that there's actually a very small percentage of that, and even with pop psychology, everybody's a narcissist. Oh, my ex, the narcissist. I'm like, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? It drives me a little bit crazy, but some of the men that I work with, there's no doubt that they are victims of horrific child abuse, sexual abuse,
Oh yeah.
mental abuse, all of the abuse.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not even in just one area of childhood development. It's in all of them, like, 0 to 5, 6 to 11. So, now you have a person who has been, conditioned, been molded,
Yeah.
been formed. And it's really hard to get them into another behavioral pattern when these are deeply rooted beliefs that the world is not safe.
Yeah.
And to them, it never has been, really.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the help that I need too with these men, is like, I need a brotherhood. I need an army.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and when we get into those pieces, what I would say,
Mhm.
and I often say is like, it comes back through the body.
Yeah.
I'm a 42-year-old,
Yes.
195-pound, 6'2" man, right? Like,
Yeah.
arguably, out here in the Bow Valley, I don't have a lot to fear. Maybe an angry grizzly. Okay, maybe,
Yes.
maybe. The parts of me that are terrified are just my tissues. So it's like,
Mhm.
how do I come back to a safe space?
Yes.
Tell you one thing, this is why men's work is so popular now, or one of the
Mhm.
reasons,
Mhm.
is because of this. Have you ever stood with a few men behind you?
Mhm.
What I mean is this, an invitation to all listeners. Next time you're hanging out with your friends, do this. Stand in front of them, in front, and have them just make a line behind you. Close your eyes and take a breath. And tell me how powerful you fucking feel.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
not about an individual. We're born in relationship, right? It takes two of us to make
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
We're only ever wounded in relationship with
Yeah.
each other or with environment or spirit. And we're only ever healed in relationship.
Good one.
Dewey
Yes.
Freeman, right? Guy's a
Yeah.
goddamn ninja. But like, here's the thing: if we were healed on our own, all of us would be fixed. There would be no
Mm.
issue ever. But
Yeah.
that's not the reality. So it's like,
Yeah.
stand with your band, right?
Yeah. There's some vulnerability in that though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, their worlds have been shaped by not trusting the very people that were supposed to keep them safe. So, um, what role does vulnerability play in men's work? And how do you encourage them to embrace it?
What role does it play? Well,
Mm.
it's omnipresent, right? So it's
Mhm.
ever present. I should be clear. At least with Man Aligned, people can be as vulnerable as they want, right? Everything's a choice.
Mhm.
What I will say is this: is vulnerability is the path to the heart way of oneself.
Yeah.
It also, we use vulnerability now today because we're all cool and we all have different languaging and we're all hippity dippity. What my dad and my
Hippity
grandpa
dippity.
would say is this: be fucking honest.
Yes.
Same thing. It's
Yeah.
not actually different. Be
Yeah.
honest. Speak what is honestly on your mind.
Yeah.
Graham, tell us when you're little and you went out and you killed the chicken. Because we asked you to kill the chicken. How do you feel? I don't
Mhm.
want to tell you, but I'm really scared. I'm sad. I like
Mm.
that chicken.
Right.
Tell us how you feel when you ate the chicken for dinner. I didn't
Mhm.
really like it, but I ate It tasted really good.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability is honesty. It's just, in my opinion, it's a new cool word for it, right?
I
And
like it.
and
Yeah.
and another piece is like when we stand with people behind us. We should be very clear,
Mm,
they're not behind us. They're beside us, right?
yes.
You ever seen a haka? You ever seen people do a haka in New Zealand?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ah,
Very
ah, right?
powerful.
So powerful, so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, such a beautiful cultural expression. It's not about
Yeah.
being behind. And when people in this work do things like, I'm a coach, or I know more, or you should join this, be
Mm-hmm.
very, very wary. Like that can be
Yeah.
very dangerous, right? Because we're not
Mm,
actually, as I say in therapy, somebody asked me this a couple of weeks ago. They said, as a therapist, what do you do? I said, I walk one half step behind people as they
mm.
remember their way home. I'm there.
Ah, amazing.
I'm there. I
Mm-hmm.
got I got you. I'm a boulder. I got your spot, right? Your
Yeah.
head, your neck, always gonna be good. You might land
Mm-hmm.
on your butt, but you're gonna be good.
Yeah.
I don't lead you. And I don't wait at the very back. And in my
Mm.
opinion, that's what leaders do.
Yes. Yeah, that was actually one of my questions is what would you say to an inspiring coach or therapist that wants to do this work? Because what I have witnessed in the arena,
In the
a
arena.
lot of yeah, is a lot of people shouldn't be lead. I don't want to say leading because you did say like not to lead,
Yeah, yeah.
but they haven't done the work.
Doing it.
They haven't done the work.
Oh, Rhonda, we could go on about this.
That's part two.
Yeah, exactly. Part two,
Yeah,
part
that's
three,
part
part
two.
four. Um,
Yeah.
what I will say, so I'll start with this. Number one, um, get educated. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is like, yeah, formal education is cool. Arguably, if you're going to be
Mhm.
doing any sort of like depth or therapeutic processes,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Mhm.
don't like, please get educated.
Yes, there is
You
so
need a
much to
certification.
this work.
Like
Yes, I
if
agree.
someone's a life coach and they're like, hey, I'm going to guide you through breath work and we're going to talk about inner childhood trauma, I'm like,
Mm,
rock and roll. And please don't do it. And the reason why is
yeah.
this. And maybe my perspective is a little different on this, right? But like,
Mhm.
so men, that's
Mhm.
my demographic. I work with co-ed
Yes.
folks, but men is basically who I spend my time with.
Yes.
What I can tell you is this: it's very not hard um,
Mhm.
to have a man open and deeply express things that he's compressed for decades. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Hey, here are my eyes. Hey, bro, what are you doing? What's really alive? Boom. This is what it is. Aside from those people who are sociopaths and psychopaths, most people
Mhm.
can get out of that. They can go through some depth questions and remember
Mhm.
mom or the lost dog or whatever, the
Yeah.
childhood stuff. And then come back to the surface. It's beautiful. Really beautiful. Literally what I do every day. There is a portion of people who cannot. That gets stuck in there.
Mm.
If you've invited someone into that, and what I mean by you is anyone, right?
Mhm.
Light worker, coach, whatever title, therapist, and you don't have 100% certainty, you can pull the life raft and swim those people to the surface. What you're doing is an actual disservice.
Mm.
Those people can be left
That makes
there
sense.
in the trauma. They can be left there.
Yeah.
7-year-old Rhonda, who was hit, and she's going to walk around, big
Mhm.
adult Rhonda, going to do her thing, do my thing.
Mhm.
And those recurrent behaviors of when that happened are going to start happening.
Yes.
That's a terrifying part that I personally see today, and I'm not here to judge and be like, oh, someone's doing it right or wrong. But what I'm here to do is be like, how ethical are you being? The other piece is,
Mm.
in my opinion, different people have different views on this, but in my opinion, you only can take people as far as you've been.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
here's an example. I love this example, but here's an example.
Mm-hmm.
I used to tell my son, who's 18 now, lives in Costa Rica, let's go. I used to say to him every night before bed, most nights, I would say 90% of the nights, until he was about 9, do you know how much Dad loves you? And look and be like, mm-hmm. Yeah, Daddy. And I give him the hug, right? And I'm like, oh, you're so great. This is the best part of being a dad. And then my friend asked me one day, I said, do you think a fucking 8-year-old understands that question? I was like, yeah, he's a question, right? Do you know how much Dad loves you? And he's like, do you know how much I love you? And I was like, not really, bro. Like we're 35. Like why? That's weird, you know? And he said, maybe try changing the question. This is what I do with my ex-wife, my son, my beloved, anyone I care about. Do you know how much I love you? Can you feel how much I love you? It's not do you know. Can you feel
Good
it?
one.
Rhonda, can you feel it? When I call you and you can't pick up the phone and I leave you a voice note, hey, thinking about you, how's the podcast? Do you feel how much I care about you?
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
So maybe, just maybe, we change that vernacular, right?
I really like that.
For a lot of folks who I see who are doing like healing work, and I'm not saying they're doing bad. Think of how this person feels. Don't think about what they know.
Yeah.
I did a 2-hour breathwork journey today. I should feel better. Slow the fuck down. How do you?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that, Graeme, because even with my experience with the inner child work that I did with you, thank God that you were my guide through that, because there was an intense emotional hangover that happened after that. And if you hadn't explained that to me, I would have been like, what the fuck is wrong with me right now? Like, I am so depressed. Right. But I had to move through that. Right. So I can understand that life raft and then just getting them back to shore.
Totally.
Or like they sink.
100%.
That's a real thing.
And thank you for that. And I was really honored to do that. And I remember coming right back to the memory. But I will say this, one of the most important aspects of leadership, in my opinion, is not knowing when to step in, but it's knowing when to step out.
Yes.
And if you're like, hey G, I got some stuff going on. Can I give you a call? And I'm like, yeah, I got space. And we have a call and you're like, yeah, it's about whatever. My first responsibility is to check in. Can I be here with you in this? Ooh, Rhonda, that's actually a piece that's triggering for me. So then it's like, can I speak that in a beautiful way to you and be like, let's come back to our breath. Rhonda, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a wizard who knows a very small person who knows somebody else, right? Who knows a leprechaun who I'm going to get their number and I'm going to give it to you, right? So it's we can't be everyone to every, we can't be everything to everyone,
so true.
right?
Yes.
And it's know your boundaries. And one of my brothers, Kevin Walton, who I honestly, once again, I think I throw Kevin Walton quotes up in every podcast I do. We love Kevin. He one of the most potent things he ever shared with me, and he shares a lot, is you have 3 responsibilities in life. And I was like, Kev, no, I don't. Man, I got a kid, I got a house, I got a dog, I got all this stuff. And he said, no. There's 3 and they work like this. 1, 2, 3. You don't put them in any other order. And I remember being like, Kev, you crazy. He's like, number one, responsibility to those who give you life. And I was like, oh, mom, dad? He's like, no, to source. Spaghetti monster in the sky. Whatever you want to call it. That's your first responsibility. Some people call it prayer. Some people call it yoga. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's your first one. How are you honoring that gave you life?
Yeah.
He's like, number two, responsibility to self. What are you putting in that body? How often are you showering? Are you shaving? Are you lifting weights? What are you doing? I was like, damn, son. He's like, responsibility number three, to all your relations and all your relationships. Yeah. If you do it in any other order, it will never work.
That's source, beautiful.
Self, relationships.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, and I work with that a lot when I'm working with men. I'm like, yeah, the ex-wife. Yes. Yeah. You pray today. And prayer.
It seems like it just seems like everybody wants to try to get better because of everybody else that's standing in line, right? And I'm like, first, like creator self, because if you don't have self, how can we be good to anybody?
Exactly. Yeah, so I like that. How do we do it, right? And like, in my opinion, sometimes I'll get, brothers or sisters who are like, well, I don't pray. And I'm like, beautiful. They're like, well, what should I do? Like, express some gratitude.
Yes, that's a huge one. Yeah.
Right? You woke up. Yeah. You woke up. That's wild. So many people today didn't wake up.
Yeah. On all the basic human needs being taken care of. That's another one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Relationships, all of it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I want to be mindful of your time, Graeme, because I know that you have a
You do what you need to do, my friend.
Oh yeah, but before I let you go, Mister, let's discuss any upcoming projects. Yes, and where can they find you?
Let's go. Okay, so upcoming situations with Madeline. We have a mastermind. We have a monthly mastermind, which I'm like so jacked on. Rhonda, I'm gonna put a Instagram post up right after this.
I'll share it.
Thank you. I'm so jacked on it. It's so basically once a week we have a presenter coming in for 2 hours, kind of an hour presentation of whatever they're working on, half an hour Q&A, half an hour introduction. This is a space for people who want to get into leadership, doing leadership specifically with men. There's no other space like it, Brenda. Like there's literally none. And we have some big players, in my opinion. Hunter Torin, Pierre-Etienne Vanier, Mike Corey. The guy's got 3 million people on YouTube. He's crazy. Fearless and far.
Amazing. Good stuff.
Mark Well, our brother we were talking about, like conscious confrontation. It's so good. So that's starting in January. It's a 3-month commitment. We have 4 speakers every month. It's $99. Don't ask me why I priced it.
Wow.
I know. I'm rethinking this, Rhonda.
But still, what a great opportunity.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And then at the end of January, so last weekend in January, first kind of day of February, we have a winter camp in Nordegg, Alberta, where we're going to ice fish. It's men. We're going to ice fish. We're going to sauna. We're going to sweat. The food's amazing. We're going to play some ice hockey. We're going to go adventure, depth, and play.
Yep.
I'll speak to Nordegg again really quick. And then end of January, we have Nordegg men's camp. So it's the last weekend and last weekend of January, first day of February. Amazing food. Our chef Rafa is coming back from Mexico for it. He's a wild man. We have ice hockey on a beautiful lake. We have ice fishing. We got adventure, depth, and play. Right? Those are 3 pieces. And from there, please, everyone, go and check out the manaligned.ca website and follow Manaligned at Instagram. Follow Graeme Ford Counseling if anything I said Was,
Yeah, I will include all